I'm over here with the Wolf Bros on my companion Druid. This has been one of the most fun builds that I've played all season. If you want to hang out with a bunch of wolves, this is going to be the build for you. I've currently cleared pit 100. I'm going to show you a run of a pit 90 so that it can go a little bit faster, and then we're going to hop into the build. So here's the run. What I've figured out while playing this build is when you pull a group in with your ultimate skill, the kills are going to reduce the cooldown by so much that you can basically just use your ultimate skill as much as you want. So we just run through, pull groups of monsters together. When your ultimate comes up, you pull everything to you. Obviously, you want to kill the reduction monsters first because those are the biggest pain, but you see how fast the ultimate skill's cooldown comes up. It's already back up. So you can just keep on using this to pull monsters in your direction, but because of the way that the build works, it's not really something that you can just move through. But the range that it pulls at is actually really, really far, so it is kind of fun to use. Run past the group of monsters that you want to pull, and then you can use it to pull the monster just even a little bit further down. But there's so much crowd control. Your wolves actually stun and freeze for you. So we're just going to keep on pulling groups of monsters. You run past what you want to pull, and then you just spam your keys. As you get the kills to rack up, like I said, you get all of the cooldowns for the ultimate skill. I'm still learning some stuff about the build. I mean, as you can see, we're a minute and a half in, about halfway through. The pit 90, you can clear 100. You'll be able to get your glyphs up to level 100 with this build solo. You don't need a group to carry you through. And then the more you play it, the easier it gets. You can basically just waste your ultimate skills on small packs of monsters if you want to. It just helps the run go by a little bit faster, but I normally just run to where there's a big group of monsters, pull them together, just go. And sometimes things just die really, really fast. Artillery Shrine is actually super fun for this build. If you watch how many of the artillery shrines get shot out because all of your companions all gain the artillery shrine, you can see it all just shooting into the middle of the pack there. It's a very fun ability. So we're going to be going through, we'll clear as many packs as we can. The elite packs, even the super elite packs, which are normally super tanky, they go down pretty quick. I was actually very surprised at how fast the single target damage is and how good it is. I'm gonna just grab these damage reduction monsters, though. The only problem with companion builds, and Minion Necromancer runs into this too, is that the damage reduction monsters, you have to make sure that your minions attack those, and making sure that your minions attack those is a little bit of a challenge. So sometimes those damage reduction monsters are up for way too long. But what's fun about Petrify is that it continues to pull, even when it's not on cooldown. So for that 5 seconds after you use it, those groups of monsters just get pulled in. So you don't need anything else, really, as long as you're running the ring, right? And so here are these damage reduction monsters. For anybody that hasn't seen them, it's the ones with the glow around them. Those are your damage reduction monsters. They make all of the other monsters take less damage by a lot, and it's a pretty significant amount. So for the bosses here, as you can see, the damage starts to really ramp up, and you can basically just use your wolves, ravens, and about 3.5 minutes, and you can get through a pit 90, which is really not too bad. So that's the build, that's the run. Let's hop into it, and I'll show you what it looks like. So that's the run. Let's hop into the skills. We're going to start at the top. We're just going to take 2 points into any of the basic skills so we can unlock the next tier. 1 point into Predatory Instinct so we can unlock Iron Fur. This is going to give us damage reduction while we're in Werebear form, and it also persists 3 seconds after leaving Werebear form. We're going to be getting Werebear form from one of our abilities, so then when we leave that Werebear form, because we won't be staying in it, we're going to have that damage reduction up still after that happens. We're going to go into Ancestral Fortitude. This is going to give us some elemental resistances. Vigilance is going to give us damage reduction after using a defensive skill. We have 2 defensive skills. One of them is going to be Debilitating Roar. This is going to reduce the enemy's damage by 40% when they're nearby for 4 seconds. Then we're going to go all the way down through Innate Debilitating Roar. You deal 15% increased damage while Debilitating Roar is active. This is going to be active for 4 seconds. We will be able to get this up almost every 4 seconds with how fast we get our cooldowns up with this build. Bloodhowl, we're going to go all the way down through Preserving Bloodhowl. This is going to give us 15% increased attack speed. It's also going to be a good little heal for us as well. Bloodhowl's cooldown is going to be reduced by 1 second every time that we kill an enemy. This comes up very, very often when there's a big pack of monsters around us. We're going to be using Backlash. We're going to deal additional damage after casting a defensive skill. We're going to max out our wolves here. We're going to go all the way down through Brutal Wolf Pack. When you critically strike, your wolves are going to gain 25% attack speed. We're going to max out Poison Creeper. We're going to go all the way down through Ferocious Poison Creeper. Poison Creeper's active poisoning duration is going to be increased by 3 seconds. We don't actually need critical strike chance with this, and we'll explain why when we get into some of the witch powers, but you don't need to be taking this, so we're just going to increase the duration that Poison Creeper's poison is going to be active for. We're going to be maxing out Ravens here. Now, even though the base damage on Ravens says it's lower than the Wolves, Ravens is actually hitting very, very hard. We are just going to have more Wolves, and they're going to be able to attack more often than our Raven will, which is why we're not going to be putting any aspects on that are going to be helping with the Raven. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go all the way down through Brutal Raven. This is going to give us 2 additional Ravens that are going to periodically attack and increase the passive damage of the Ravens by 40%. What that means is all of our abilities here, we have a passive and we have an active. What a passive means, we're going to summon 5 Ravens that are going to fly above you and they attack enemies. That happens without us doing anything. Well, we have an active. That means that when we click the button on our bar, we're going to target the area and swarm the Ravens down, and that's going to deal damage over time. So what we need to do is constantly be using this ability, and we're going to have a way to maintain the passive while it's on cooldown. When you use an active normally without this key passive that we're going to be taking, when it's on cooldown, we don't gain that passive ability. Now it's going to be active all the time. So we can spam this as much as we possibly can, and we'll talk about that when we get into the boons. The same thing happens with Poison Creeper. We're going to have 3 Poison Creepers that are just going to be circling around us. So if you look, you'll see vines popping out of the ground constantly as you're just standing there out in the open. Same thing with your wolves. The passive is going to be 4 wolf companions that are going to bite enemies. So we're going to have 4 wolves around us. So you get to see that too. And when you look at your monsters, they're going to always be there. So that's what the difference is with the passive and the active abilities. We're going to go 3 points into Feral Aptitude. We're going to deal additional damage while we're healthy. Healthy is above 80% life. And we're going to deal 12% increased damage when we're above movement speed. We're also going to be going into Call of the Wild here. Our companion skills are going to deal up 48% additional bonus. So that's a really big one here. If you can find that on an amulet, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. 3 points into Humanity. We're going to deal increased damage while we're in human form. We're going to be bouncing back and forth between Werebear, Werewolf, and human form constantly. Coming down, we're going to go 1 point into Neurotoxin so we can unlock Envenom. You and your companions are going to gain a gigantic critical strike damage boost against poison enemies. With Poison Creeper constantly floating around, we're always going to have poison enemies up. We're going to be maxing out Petrify all the way down through Supreme Petrify. Killing an enemy affected by Petrify reduces its cooldown by 1 second. Hitting a boss with Petrify reduces its cooldown by 10 seconds. The reason we're using this is because we can spam this very, very quickly. If you see that 13.69 second cooldown, if you hit a boss, you now have a 3-second cooldown. With the way that this build is set up, we're also going to be able to reduce that very, very quickly, even if we're not killing a lot of enemies very fast. So Petrify gives us the 30% increased damage against normal monsters, 50% increased damage against bosses. We're also extending the duration to 7 seconds. It's a really great choice for this build. We're going to be going 3 points into Catastrophe. We're going to deal increased damage after we cast an ultimate skill. As you can see, we're going to have that ultimate skill up all the time. We're going to go 3 points into Defiance. This is going to give us increased damage against elites. Now this says nature magic. Now we'll talk about how we're going to be doing nature damage with a companion build when we get into the aspects. We're going to put 2 points into Natural Disaster. This is going to make our storm skills deal additional damage. And then for your key passive, this is where we get the passive ability all the time for our companions. Your companion skills each gain 1 additional companion and deal 80% increased damage. You gain the passive effects for ravens, wolves, and poison creepers. Now, like I said, normally when you cast one of these abilities, it's on cooldown. While it's on cooldown, you don't gain the passive. This allows you to have the passive up at all times, even when the cooldown is happening. So that's the skill tree. We're going to take a look at the Paragon board. When you're building Paragon boards this season, make sure that you fill the board out completely first. Take every legendary node and every glyph spot first before you fill out the whole board. If you're following along with the planner that's going to be in the description of this video, this is it right here. I'm going to have two different Paragons. We have a Paragon board with only about 215 points spent. This will allow you to view the entire Paragon board and only unlock the most important nodes. Once you have done that, and you still have more Paragon points left, you come right over to the full Paragon board here. This will have the complete board set up for you so that we don't have to miss out on the abilities that you're going to need the most. So make sure you follow along with the planner. It'll be in the description of the video. For the starter board, we're going to be running Wilds. Your passive portion of the companion skills is going to get a massive increase to damage. When you hit level 46 on any of your glyphs, you're going to gain a legendary bonus. That legendary bonus for this is going to be an increased critical strike damage bonus, and that's a multiplicative number. Coming up, we're going to be going into the Heightened Malice board. While a poison enemy is nearby, you're going to deal 35% increased damage, plus an additional 5% increased damage for each poison enemies, up to 4. So that's a total of 55% increased damage. Inside of that board, we're going to be running Spirit. Critical strikes increase the damage enemies take from you, and that goes up to 15%. We're also going to get an increased critical strike damage bonus from this. In the next board, we're going to be running Lust for Carnage. Critical strikes with werewolf skills restore 2 spirit and deal 50% increased damage. Now, that's a werewolf skill. We're not using any werewolf abilities when you looked at the skill tree, but we're going to show you exactly how we're going to get this bonus. What we're going to be doing is outmatched in this board. This is going to give us a bonus to all of the rare nodes around us. And then we're also going to deal 15% increased non-physical damage to bosses and elites. This is all going to come together when we get into the aspects of it. We'll also be gaining an increased damage bonus as the multiplicative number here. We're going to be running Untamed. Casting a companion skill is going to grant 20% increased companion damage, and that stacks up to 80%. Inside of that board, we're going to be running Keeper. We'll be gaining a bonus to all of the rare nodes, and you and your companions deal 15% increased non-physical damage. We're going to gain an increase to non-physical damage as the multiplicative number here also. For the final board, we're going to be running Thunderstruck. Storm skills deal increased damage equal to 20% of your damage versus close and damage versus distant bonus, up to 60%. We're currently capped on this bonus here. We're going to be running Earth and Sky. Another bonus to our magic nodes within this area. Nature magic skills are going to deal 10% increased damage to crowd-controlled or vulnerable enemies. And then nature magic skills are going to gain an increased multiplicative number for this. Now let's break down where all of this damage is coming from, because the only abilities that are going to be doing damage for us is going to be our companions, but we have a lot of different types of damage. So let's pull it all together when we get into the gear. If you do not have the mythics for it, I will have an option inside of the planner that does not have mythics, and it actually is up for debate whether or not Era Perdition is going to be a better option. I'm going to be continuing to do some more testing just to see, but the helmet that's in the planner for the non-mythic version might actually be best in slot. It is yet to come, but I'll have an updated video for everybody once I figure out exactly what we're going to be doing. For the gear, we're going to be starting with the helmet. This is going to be Era Perdition. For the masterworking crits, make sure you follow along with the planner. That will be the best way to look at where to put the masterworking. This is going to give us an increased 60% multiplier to all of our damage. For the chest piece, we're going to be running Shroud of False Death. This is incredibly strong. There really is no stronger mythic out there. This gives us +1 to all of our passives. It gives us all more defensive abilities, more attacking abilities. Everything that is a passive gains an additional point. For the gloves, we're going to be running Stampede. Gain 1 additional companion. In addition, your companions are going to deal increased bonus damage. For the affixes, we're going to be running Maximum Life, Armor, and Attack Speed. And for your tempers, we're going to be running Werewolf Attack Speed and Wolf's Attack Speed. 2 different ones here, but if you see, we have some big gigantic werewolves sitting here, so we're going to be increasing that attack speed as well. For the pants, we're going to be running Storm's Companion. This is a very, very good piece of gear. We're going to get Wolf Attack Speed, Pack Leader, Spirit Boons, Lucky Hit Chance is going to be increased, and we'll go over that when we get to the boons. Some damage reduction, and then plus ranks to wolves. Your wolf companions are infused with the power of Storm, dealing lightning damage and gaining the Storm Howl ability. This is where our non-physical damage and all of our storm damage is coming from in the Paragon board. We're going to be stacking that because our wolves are all going to be doing lightning damage. It's a really cool way to interact with the companions. For the boots, we're going to be running concussive strikes. You have a chance to daze enemies. Now, when we have so many wolves attacking that have all of our lucky hit chance, this is going to proc a lot. We're going to deal 25% increased damage to those dazed enemies. For the affixes here, you can kind of mess around with this, play with whatever you want to play with. If you need more resistances, keep the resistances. If you want the movement speed, you can do that. If you want willpower for more damage, you can do that too. But I have max life, movement speed, resistance to all elements. And then for the tempers, we have movement speed and then wolf's attack speed. For the two-handed weapon, the reason that you want to be running a two-handed weapon here is we're going to be running shepherds. That's the aspect here. Companion skills deal an additional up to 26 damage per companion you have active. Now, if you look at how many companions we have active, and we're constantly spawning more, we have all the poison creepers, we have all of the ravens, that is a massive boost to damage, and we have doubled it by putting it onto a two-handed weapon. For the affixes here, we're going to be running willpower, maximum life, critical strike damage, and then for the tempers, we're going to be running werewolf attack speed, and then wolves have a chance to deal double damage. For the ring, we're going to be running Arita's Inexorable Will. When casting an ultimate skill, and for 5 seconds afterwards, you pull in distant enemies, and you're going to deal up to 932 physical damage to them. This is going to be increased by 10% per point of willpower that you have, and it shows the current bonus on the bottom. It is 26,310% increase. This is also a great source of cooldown for our ultimate abilities. For the other ring, we're going to be running Vehement Sprawler. You saw how fast I was able to get my cooldown off of my ultimate skill. This is going to give us 30% increased damage after we cast an ultimate skill. We're also going to gain 2 additional ranks to our ultimate skill. For the affixes, we're going to be running willpower, maximum life, and attack speed. And then for the tempers, we're going to be running werewolf attack speed and then petrify cooldown. For the amulet, we're going to be running alpha. Your wolf companions are now werewolf companions. Werewolf companions now deal additional damage and can spread rabies. You look, that's how we converted everything into a werewolf. That's where all the werewolf attack speed came from and where all the werewolf damage is going into. So this is a really key aspect for this. For the affixes, I'm running willpower, maximum life, ranks to envenom. And then for your tempers, we're going to be running wolf attack speed and then petrify cooldown. For the gems, we're going to be running sapphires in all of your armor. We don't want to put anything into the weapons because this actually gives us a bigger boost to our damage. So inside of your armor, make sure you use your sapphires. For the runes, we're going to be running Yul Zek. This is going to be how we reduce the ultimate skill cooldown so quickly. Every time that we cast 2 skills with a cooldown, which all of our abilities are, every single one of our companion skills has a cooldown, it's going to reduce the cooldown of our ultimate skill by 1 second. We spam keys on this, so our ultimate skill is actually going to come up very, very quickly. For the other runes, we're going to be running Nagu Se, or Nagu Ke. Whichever one you pronounce it, that's what we're going to go with. Maintain at least 1 active summon for 5 seconds, gaining offerings for each up to 6 summons. So if you have more summons active, up to 6, you can gain 600 offerings every 5 seconds. Your wolf companions are up for 8 seconds. So that means from that 5 seconds to that 8 seconds, there is 3 seconds where we have now summoned double the wolves. It's really, really awesome to see just how many wolves are running around, and you can watch it here. Some of them are going to spawn, and then some of them are going to despawn, but when they spawn, there's always more of them around. It's a really, really fun combination. For the occult gems, we're going to be running Pointed Finger. Your summon abilities are going to deal 15% increased damage to hex enemies. We're also going to run Duststone. For each of your auras and hexes an enemy is affected with, they take a 2.5% increased damage from you. And then we're also running Friend of the Bog. While you have 3 or more Growth and Decay witch powers equipped, you're going to gain 8% primary core stat and 10% maximum life. You're also going to be unhindered. That means that you can move freely through enemies. If you are feeling a little bit squishy and then you wanted to run another option would be Moonlight Ward. That'll give you some additional damage reduction and some maximum resistances here. For the witch powers, we're going to start with the cycle. This is going to be your unique witch power. When you deal damage, you have a 15% chance to grow a flower. That flower is going to react differently depending on what steps on it. If an enemy steps on it, it's going to deal damage to them. If one of your summons steps on it, it's actually going to heal you for 10% of your maximum life. We're going to be running Aura Specialization. Now the tooltip is broken here. This actually gives us 35% increased multiplicative critical strike damage. It also is the reason why our aura is so gigantic here. We're going to be running Grow. This got buffed, and this is also the reason why we don't need any critical strike chance with this build. This gives us an increase of 75% bonus damage to our summons, and they gain 100% critical strike chance. This happens after we cast an ultimate skill, and it lasts for 10 seconds. Our cooldown on our Petrify is less than that because of the way that we have it set up, so we are always going to have gigantic monsters. Now, if you watch here, what it does, when you click on Petrify, the monsters get huge, which is really fun. It's an awesome animation and a very, very cool way to interact with the monsters. We're going to be running Aura of Siphoning. That is the green and purple aura that's running around us. When Aura of Siphoning deals damage to monsters, we heal for 1% of our maximum life. Then we're going to be running Hex of Whispers. This is incredibly strong. If there is one thing that you probably could go without, it's going to be this. If you're pushing the pits and you get hit by one of the echoes at one of the bosses, this will remove the debuff that does increasing damage. The same thing happens for Lilith. If Lilith hits you and puts a debuff on you, this will remove that debuff. It is a great way to push a little bit higher in the pits and not have to worry so much when you get to the boss. Then we're going to be running Shaken Soul. Now, there's a couple different ways to apply vulnerable damage. This is definitely the most reliable way to do it, so I've been running this. If you wanted to drop this and add something else on, you probably could do that, but I really like having the extra vulnerable damage up, so that was the choice that I made with this build here. For your boons, we're going to be running Prickle Skin. Deal 5% increased damage for 5 seconds after you get hit by an enemy. Or your Spirit Bonding, we're going to be taking the Eagle. Now you can Spirit Bond with one of your boons. That allows you to select 2 different boons from that specific one. Inside of this, we're going to be taking Swooping Attacks. You're going to gain 20% increased attack speed. We're also going to be doing Avian Wrath, 40% increased critical strike damage. This is where your pants are going to make such a big difference. On a lucky hit chance, critical strikes have up to a 61% chance, which can go up depending on the pants that you have, to reset the cooldown of your companion skills. So how this whole thing works. Every single one of your summons has a lucky hit chance. Your Wolves is 82%, your Ravens is 74%, and then your Poison Creeper is 46%. That means that they're going to proc lucky hit chances that often. When they proc a lucky hit, then we have a 61% chance to reset the cooldowns of our companion skills. If you look at the pants here, 105% to Pack Leader Spirit Boon's lucky hit chance. That doesn't mean that we have a 100% chance. That means that it took what is normally about a 30% chance to reset our companion skill cooldown, and it now has doubled it to that 61%. So if you find a GA piece of gear, that is going to give you even more of a chance to reset your cooldowns. If you do watch, we have so many summons up that the companion skills reset already fast enough. So that doesn't really matter all too much, but it definitely is just a little bit of an increase for you. For the final boon, we're going to be running Calm Before the Storm. On a lucky hit chance, our nature magic skills have a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of our ultimate skill by 2 seconds. It's definitely all about making sure that Petrify gets cooldown as much as possible. For the mercenaries, you have a couple different choices here. I'm running Subo. If you need more defenses, which I might actually end up swapping to Rahir, you can put Rahir on. That'll actually help me get closer to my armor cap. For Subo, we're going all the way down through this side of the tech tree. This is going to give us 25% increased critical strike damage bonus when anybody is hit by cover fire from Subo. And then for your opportunity, we're running Variana. This is going to give us Bloodthirst, which gives us 10% increased attack speed whenever we cast Blood Howl. But it's on a 22-second cooldown timer, so you can choose which one that you want to run with. For the gameplay loop, this is pretty much just hit the buttons as fast as you can. Now, there's just a couple things that you want to look out for. We're going to be running a Debilitating Roar. This is going to do reduced damage, and it's also going to give us an increase to our damage. This is going to give us our increase to our attack speed. When we cast Petrify, it actually is going to help reset the cooldown of both of these abilities. I'll show you what this looks like. Even without the wolves attacking or using any of our companion abilities, you can cast your defensive abilities. We cast both of these here, and then when we use Petrify, they are automatically cooled down. Then you start using all of your abilities down here. Now, if you look, we have 5 seconds on Ravens, and then we have 6 seconds on Poison Creeper. So if you cast 1, and then you cast 2, and then you just spam your wolf key, for the next 5 seconds, your wolves are going to be doing their main attack. And then you cast Poison Creeper, Ravens, and then your wolves. And in between there, we're going to be casting Petrify, you're going to be casting your Debilitating Roar, and you're going to be casting your Blood Howl. So then it's just a cycle here. We just spam our wolves. This is going to help reset all of our cooldowns, because if you watch this, once you really get going and you start casting abilities, Petrify comes up very, very quickly. Now, if you wanted to test out the damage and see what it would be like for bosses, you just swap to bosses, because this is just normal monsters here. If you watch the difference with Petrify now has a 4-second cooldown. You're going to see a whole bunch of increased damage. You just spam your keys as fast as you can, and that's going to bring up Petrify's cooldown even faster. It's doing up to 6 billion damage. It's huge numbers. So depending on how you want to play the build, if you wanted to simply just spam your wolves, or you want to bring Petrify back up when you're fighting packs of monsters, bosses, you probably can get away with just 1, 2, and then use your wolves with Petrify. But when you're in packs of monsters, you want to just spam everything that you can do. So that's the run right there. That's exactly what it looks like. This build is a ton of fun. Absolutely get out there. See if you can push higher in the pits than I can. I would love to hear from you. Hit the comments up with what you do with this build. I'm live every night. I'd love it if you stopped by, said hi, theory crafted with me. Catch you on the clip side.